And welcome into podcast number 6. Honored and privileged to have the newly re-elected mayor of Cortland, Mark Pietrowski, joining us today. Mark, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are things with you?
I am doing great. I'm living the dream. You can see that right here. We're in the bowels of the library recording this in the sound studio here. And of course, Mark, your name came up right away. You were in a close competition for mayor. I wanted to ask you about that. But first, let's talk about Cortland being the third largest town in Illinois. I know that's your catchphrase. I actually looked it up. I guess Cicero is 81,000, normal is 52,000. But tell us about that little trademark for Cortland.
You know what? It's been there for a long time. It's a little quirk because in Illinois there's not many towns. So they got rid of the town distinction after a certain year, I think in the 1800s or something too. And so there was only, I don't have the exact number, I'll have to look that up, but less than 40, I believe, towns or something like that in the state of Illinois. So it was just something that people noticed, and I think the joke of it is that Cicero and Normal are so much bigger than we are, and then so we're the third largest, but then other people below us are pretty far below us too. So it's just an interesting little thing. I kind of equate it to the Snapple bottle caps, when they'd have some weird factoid that would be on there. That's kind of like our local weird factoid. But people seem to really love it because I remember in my first term, I toyed with, hey, we'll maybe find a new slogan or different things. And people were like, don't you touch that third letter. And I was like, wow, people are really attached to it. So we are developing, and we have new welcome signs that we're going to be putting out. Okay. So the third largest sign is going to stay on there. We're probably going to add another tagline as well. And, we had an idea for that. Some people were going, I don't know about that and everything. So, I'm going to talk to the board. We may do a naming contest or something.
Are you having a competition?
We might do that. So we did that with one of the fishing pond that we created during my first term. And I put it out, that one just for kids. So it was like, hey, adults, that's great, but I want the kids to be able to name this one. And a kid came up with the name of Dragon Tail Pond.
Oh, okay. I saw
and so it's the Cortland community, or the Cortland Elementary School is right over there, and their mascot's a dragon. Okay. So kind of had that tie-in, and I guess a lot of their classes and stuff will take walks down to the pond and do little learning exercises over there. So it works out really well.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. And there's more than one pond, isn't there? Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's just one for the town. Okay. But then the other ones are from HOAs and everything like that. But,
all right, pretty good.
But the town just has the one fishing pond, but we do have kayaking over there and everything else. And we've talked about even having kayak rentals over there too. So that's something we're
I'm signing up if you got it. I'm there for that. Now, people are leaving the state of Illinois, but they're not leaving Cortland, that's for sure. Let's look at the census here. 2000, you had 2,066 people. 2010, 4,020, 270. And now 2020, 4,398 people. So people are sticking around Cortland, huh, Mark?
They're sticking around. The latest numbers have us, probably around 4,700. So we're continuing to grow. We've got new homes being built every day.
Tell us about housing starts. Have you had a lot, or
we have? Yeah. So there's some different. There's Cortland Community Homes, I believe, is one of the developers. We also have Silverthorne is still out there. I just want to name all of them. So
I don't want to miss anybody. No.
And then Shodine has started to build homes in Cortland as well. And there's some other developers too. I think Keith Almaty, I believe, is building somewhere by the school. So again, there's just a lot of developers that are interested now, and they're finding that people want to live in Cortland. I think they like the small town feel of us, and that we're pretty well positioned right by I-88, for people that are commuting to the suburbs or to the city for work. So, I think it works out nicely there. We'd love to kind of get some more small businesses into the community. That's a little bit more difficult because we have to address maybe our parking issues and everything else. And then there's also issues of the available commercial land. Well, private owners own that, and maybe they don't want to sell. Or if they do want to sell, they want top dollar. Developers don't want to pay that. So there's this give and take there. So we do have some land that the town controls, though, and that's something that we're going to look into. Hey, is there certain things we need to do with rezoning, different things to work with businesses that want to come and develop here?
I was going to ask you the name Cortland, but I guess that comes, you guys are named after Cortland, New York.
Yeah, and then the Cortland apple and everything. So we want to incorporate the Cortland apple somewhere in the in the future. So I've even toyed with having a small little apple orchard, doing Cortland apples. So we'll see. There's the old Cortland school we have possession of now. And we are turning part of it into the new police station. So we did in the new budget just vote to devote some dollars towards that project, getting that off the ground, getting that moving. So we'll have our police be able to move over there. That'll allow our water department and public works to all be in one vicinity.
Yeah.
Or facility. And then it opens up where the water office or water department had some offices. That'll turn into where we can have a private conference room that we can utilize. So it's really going to be good moving some spaces around too.
Yeah, it's great to utilize that space like that. Now, I was also looking up in some studies here. The average age in Cortland is 30 years old. So a very young town.
We're a very, very young community with young families.
And average income about 98,000. So you got some young upcomers there, don't you?
Yes. I said, so when you break down the numbers, Cortland, I believe, is the most affluent community in DeKalb County. We're also the youngest, so we are a community that has a lot of young families. They want things that they can do locally too. So we try to do a lot more events. We brought back the Easter
splash pad.
The splash pad. We brought back the Easter egg hunt. We've started to put more amenities in our parks for all ages. So this year I think we talked about putting in sand volleyball in one of our parks as well. So just looking at different things that we can do.
But there's the thing, you listen to
relatively low dollar and everything. But
listen to people want like the volleyball park. That's great.
Absolutely.
The people said they want it. It doesn't cost that much.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things too that people don't always realize is Cortland is not in a park district. So our taxpayers save money on not having to pay another government entity for that. But then one of the potential drawbacks is, we don't have as much money then for our parks, but we're able to take that from our general revenue. We're able to do grants. So we had, due to the great nature of DeKalb County, community grants program, they were able to help fund us do some ADA accessible playground equipment in one of our parks. We're also going to be doing a shelter over there. And so there's a lot of things we're looking at each and every year to try to improve our parks.
That's great, fantastic. I didn't know you don't have a park district there in Cortland.
No, we don't. So if our residents want to do programs with DeKalb or Sycamore, they just pay that out of residency rates for those programs, but then they're not paying any type of separate tax dollars towards that.
All right, very good. Now, you were in a close election here, this last one. Not that close, actually. You won 61% to Doug Corson's. But then I noticed back in the election before, your first year you were elected, Doug Corson also ran against you, and also Charmaine Fioretto, if I'm saying that correctly. Tell us about Doug, and what is it like? Did you have a friendly competition? What was the election?
Yeah, I think so. So the main thing is, he ran the first time. I ran as well. Doug and Charmaine were both trustees, and they remain trustees as well. So Doug still has 2 years on the council. They're longtime Cortland residents. I always say none of us own these positions, right? So I don't have some king's right towards any type of mayor role or anything like that. So what you do is you put it out to the voters. I'm very happy and pleased that I believe, in the first election in a three-way race, I got 54% of the vote. The re-election, I got 61%. I think it's a good sign that people feel like we're moving in the right direction. So I'm really humbled by that. But I think the competition was friendly. I kept it very positive and everything. So we both shook hands afterwards. So again, I think we're ready to move on and move Cortland forward.
I think you answered my question. I was going to say, ask if you're going to use Doug and Charmaine in the
absolutely. Already there. So Charmaine already she endorsed and supported me in the re-election.
Okay.
Yeah. So Charmaine was with me on that. Our visions really closely align. Again, Doug and I had some differences, but again, nothing that can't be worked out and everything. And what we have both done is we've always kept communication lines open. That's really important, is to be able to pick up the phone, make a phone call. He's willing to do that. I'm willing to do that.
I'm glad you said that instead of a text, like a call.
Give a call. You gotta.
There's a tone.
Yes. Yeah. So that's really important. What people need to understand too. If you're going into public service or anything like that, if you can talk directly to somebody face to face or on the phone or something, you can pick up different tones for each other and everything like that. If you're just sending things for print or anything like that, you can really sometimes potentially dramatically misread something.
Yeah.
Which could impact a lot of things. So I think it's important just to, I know it seems old timey now, but it's like have that cup of coffee with them in person or pick up the phone and talk to them directly.
And you must have been encouraged, Mark, because you're a longtime political guy. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the turnout for the election this year, obviously higher than in 2021. It's so good to see that.
Yeah, that was good. Obviously it's still always too low in municipal elections.
Yes.
But that being said, people seem to be engaged and everything with it. It's just, that's something when people look at it and they go, oh, it's low turnout. It's like, well, honestly, for the last, this from being a reporter and everything, that going back years and years and years, that 20 to 25% is kind of where it lands.
Yeah, sadly, yes.
For mayor elections and for municipal elections. And then when the mayor position's not up, it can get even lower than that. Sometimes I think the lowest I've seen is like 8 or 10%. There's sometimes where there's not a lot of competitive races, people just don't show up.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Again, we'll always encourage people to do their research, to look at those situations, because truly the local races sometimes impact their lives even more than the federal, which people don't always see that. And they think, well, it's all about electing the president and everything. And obviously that can be really important for the overall views, strategy, laws for the country. But locally on your commute to work or something, you want to be able to rely on your local governments.
And that's where the power is, right? Mark, is electing local officials, because they're the ones that are affecting your everyday life.
Absolutely. Right? So it's, do you have clean water, and everything with your community? Are they keeping up with roads? Are they doing different things with, extending sidewalks and making sure your community's ADA accessible and all these different factors? So I think it's important. Do they have things for you to do it in their parks and everything else? So local elections are always near and dear to my heart, and it's something that, again, I think is one of the best things that somebody could do locally is to serve their community, whether it be on the school board or even in non-elected roles. There's people that say, oh, I never want to be elected to something. Hey, that's fine. It takes a special breed sometimes. Some people that want to put themselves on a ballot and have, even if you win, like you pointed out, like I had a nice victory and everything, still had 38% of people that didn't vote for me, right? So let's be real there. You have to be able to deal with the fact that you're not going to please everybody. And there's always going to be people, no matter what you do, that are going to vote against you or not want you to succeed. So if you don't want that pressure, but you still want to serve, there's plenty of nonprofits in our community that are begging and pleading for people to be on their boards and to help be volunteers. So yeah. I would really encourage people that don't want anything to do with politics, but still want to help their local community, to reach out to one of our local nonprofits to see how they can help.
Great example. I want to say Julie Newmar, I believe is her name. The Trash Squirrels. Have you heard about the Trash Squirrels?
Great organization. We've had them in Cortland before. We've done a trash pickup. They've obviously done a great job with cleaning up DeKalb. And I remember, again, it's gratifying in terms of when they do hey, here's the weight of all the garbage we picked up. It's also like, oh my goodness, but no, it's great. And this is just residents that said, hey, we're just regular people that are going to do this and we're going to make a difference. And they did.
All right, let's go back to a young Mark Pietrowski. I hate to start on a negative note, but Mark wanted to be a Chicago Cub baseball player, and it never worked out for him. Tell us about it. You were a big baseball player. So
yeah, you did a big deep dive there. So I'll tell a little story So my mom, I remember doing a little Post-it note. She still has it. It's faded, but she still has it. And I drew a little head figure with a smiley face, and it had a Cub hat. And it said, "Dear Mom, soon I will be on the Cubs." And
it's great you say that.
And obviously, yeah, she saved it. She has it. It used to be a blue Post-it. Now it's like a faded green, from the sunlight and everything else. But, I did say that. I sadly never ended up on the Cubs. I did play Little League Baseball and everything else, but
were you okay? I was all glove. I was all glove, no stick, as they say. I was a great fielder, pitched, but I couldn't hit to save my life.
That was okay. A little scrappy, right? So like I played basketball too, growing up and everything, and obviously there's certain points when you realize that you're 5'7", that you're not going to be a star NBA basketball player, probably not even college either. So that's sometimes the dreams kind of become, it's like, let me find another dream, So for me, I knew if it was something where I could be a public service, a speaker, an educator, that kind of became where I wanted to fuel my passion and direct my energies towards that. But again, I'm still a huge Cub fan. And so I should have just amended that to say, "Dear Mom, soon I will be watching the Cubs at Wrigley." Because that's what I do.
There. And now, what about talk about who was the biggest influence as a child? Was there a politician or a teacher that you said, you know what, I would like to do that when I get older?
So I want to say a story. Not that I necessarily agree with this politician politically.
Okay.
So I'm going to preface that before anybody freaks out if they know me or anything like that. But I would have my parents record Ronald Reagan giving speeches, and everything, and talking.
The great communicator.
The great communicator. So I was enamored with him as a child because I was a young child, obviously, when he was president and everything else. But I remember just being like, "Oh, this guy encapsulate." Like he grabbed my attention even as a kid, and I viewed him as like a grandfather type figure, because I did not have a grandfather growing up, but they had died and everything else, but, when I was a little kid. So that was
like Michael Keaton with the Young Republican lunchbox, were you?
No.
Are you old enough to remember Michael Keaton?
Yes, I am old enough to remember that. I was never that.
Okay.
But that was something where I remember just being like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I always kind of had an interest in presidents and everything. I again, growing up, I don't think I ever thought, hey, I'm going to be elected to something or I'm going to do this, but I had an intrigue. And I will say that intrigue is what grew over time. And so I truly didn't really kind of put my stake in politics until 2007. That's when my now wife said, hey, we should go check out this organizing campaign for for Illinois politician Barack Obama, who is exploring running for president. And I said, okay, let's go check it out and everything. And that's when since that time, I've been involved in politics or elected office since 2007.
So you weren't class president in high school or any?
No, I didn't really have the interest there. So in high school, I was interested more in just having fun with friends. Okay. I wasn't as involved in student organizations, things like that. I was in the art club. I enjoyed that. I played basketball, on the basketball team, different things like that. But it wasn't until college that I really said, oh, I'm going to run for student government. So I was involved in student government in college. And then when I was at Pietrowski College, and then when I was at NIU, I decided to write for the school paper. You had to pick one or the other. You couldn't do both. They didn't let you sit in government and be
I can see that,
be in the media, so you had to pick both. So my first 2 years in college, I picked government side. Second 2 years, I picked the newspaper and writing for the newspaper, learning what it meant to be a journalist, everything else. So I think that
I was a journalism major too, or actually a minor. And the worst thing when you bring your story in, he takes the red marker and starts just cutting everything. This is no good.
Like no.
And you pour your heart into it, and you got to rewrite it again. Those rewrites were the worst.
I loved journalism and being able to write on a deadline and get a story together, or at the Northern Star where I wrote. I was able to, do some comedic type articles as well, and some regular news articles and different things like that. But it really gave me a wide range of things that I could do. And I really credit my training and education in journalism helping me then in politics as well, because I knew then kind of, the who, what, where, when, why, and how to structure stuff and how to even talk to the media and how to pay respect towards them and respect deadlines and everything else.
Very good. Now let's just kind of pick up where we Now, 2009, you're elected to the Kishwaukee College Board of Trustees. 2012, the Cal County Board, you're elected, District Number 3. Delegate for Barack Obama. That's what I want to ask you, the Democratic National Convention. Tell us about that. Was 2012. You were just mentioning that earlier, how you got that kind of future interest.
So
did you meet Barack? Did you get to meet Barack?
So I didn't meet him there and everything. I did go in 2004 when he spoke at Hopkins Park and everything. My now wife and I went out there and saw him over there, waved and all that kind of stuff. But no, at the convention, didn't get a chance to meet him there, but I did meet Michelle Obama and I met Joe Biden as well.
Okay.
So that was nice and did an event with them there. But that was kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. So to have a sitting president that's from Illinois, I was an Illinois delegate, so I got to be right front center. You know, all these major speakers are there speaking and everything else. That was a really interesting experience.
Yeah, I bet. Boy, yeah. Kind of peaking early with that. That's awesome.
Right, exactly. But again, then it's one of those things. It's like, okay, I did that, done that. Now I can move on to other stuff too and everything.
I want to mention your time on the DeKalb County Forest Preserve because you were there with the Fairdale recovery as well. Tell us about that and how devastating that was, but the way the community rallied behind that.
So I became county board chairman just a few months prior to that the tornado hitting. And I remember exactly where I was. My wife and I were at home. We were watching kind of the TV or the news, and then she saw, something come up about Fairdale, like basically that there was some really bad weather or potential tornado going over there. She went, hey, like, that's in DeKalb County and everything like that. You need to. So I remember calling, the police and everything else to say, hey, like, people are monitoring this, what's going on. Then it actually hit and everything. And then it was on the phone constantly trying to see what's going on. I went out to to Fairdale the next day, saw the devastation. One of the things I'll tell your listeners and everything too, when you see the aftermath of a tornado on TV, it looks devastating. Mm-hmm. When you are walking the streets and you're at ground level, it's different than I ever imagined. It's even worse. So, and it's really bizarre too, because I remember walking and I'd see a house that was torn in half, stuff everywhere, right? But then I'd look and I'd see a desk and there'd be a piece of paper that didn't move. Wow. There'd be other things. So that was just kind of like an awe-inspiring thing. That'd be like, wow, like just the power of these things, but also it almost defied logic because there'd be untouched objects, a glass vase that didn't move an inch. Wow. But you see half the house is gone, but that was really devastating. There was lives lost. There was lives of people's family pets that were lost. Thankfully, too, we had recovery teams to recover pets that had run away or had gotten lost and everything else to try to reunite families. But that was a real wake-up call that you can have all the plans in the world for what you're going to do when you're elected to office, and then you have an unplanned emergency, and that takes precedent on how do we lead? How do we organize this? And so we, created
the organization
disaster plan
about that, because that made you probably, I'm sure, appreciate government even more, because what a mess that was. And there's money available, but how do you get it? How do you get it to the people?
Well, and that's where, again, we relied on nonprofit, corporations. We relied on government as well. And it's this like triad of a partnership between all these different entities, being able to get meals donated from corporations, being able to have American Red Cross come and help. Along with, we had our own nonprofit that formed locally. And Bill Nicholas was involved in that, and obviously we mentioned his name a lot in DeKalb County history. If we're talking, I'm sure he'll be a future. I'm sure he'll be a future guest of yours.
Yes, yes.
But he's got a ton of stories to tell, and I'm sure about this as well. But just a lot of people working together, and we got it going. They just had the 10-year anniversary.
And I can't believe that.
I can't believe that. I mean, it's amazing, and people were able to rebuild homes. But that was a struggle. We had to do a whole different septic system there, because what people don't realize is that those homes out there and everything, the infrastructure was so old that they couldn't rebuild as it was, because you can't have the wells right next to the sewage and all that kind of stuff. So we had to orchestrate through nonprofit, through government, a whole new septic area, a whole new infrastructure plan. They were on propane. We were able to get NICOR to run gas lines. So there's a lot of different things that we were able to do.
That's awesome. We're talking to the newly re-elected mayor of Cortland, Mark Pietrowski. Now let's lighten it up a little, Mark. I was on social media, getting ready for this interview, and I see that you respond on social media. You kind of keep an eye on Cortland through social media, because it's kind of fun that you respond to these emails.
Yeah, so I try to keep track of the different Cortland pages and things like that. Sometimes people will tag me and things, and I do it within reason. Like, I can't respond all times of the day and everything else, but I definitely try to keep track and just provide some helpful information, and maybe dispel rumors or different things too.
Well, let's do a couple, because this one was the title, "Hey, Mr. Mayor, we need a speed bump on Hahn Drive by the school." Mm-hmm. And you answered, it's an issue with the plowing, and then you said you were in touch with the school and you've taken this under consideration. You didn't just blow it off.
No, we didn't blow off. So we actually had staff meet with those neighbors out there. We were looking at a temporary speed bump that could possibly be there, so we could put it down, but we could take it up again too. So maybe we don't have it during the winters.
Right.
Things like that. That would be the plowing issue and stuff. So what we try to do is look for solutions. We can't always get there in the way that people want, but one of the things that I really like to try to do is communicate with residents, have our staff communicate with them. We had, neighbors talk about, oh, there's draining issues over here in this neighborhood. Oh, let's bring the engineer out there, kind of look to see maybe what some solutions are there. And again, sometimes the solutions aren't always the things that the people want to hear. But we want to make sure that we're being transparent and that we're offering any assistance that we can.
And then the safety aspect too, because here somebody had posted, why was the SWAT team and 8 cop cars outside Worthington Home Ltd? And again, you respond, it was a verbal domestic situation. Cortland Police and the DeKalb County Sheriff's responded, no SWAT team, and the issue was handled, and it's over. I'll say the issue was handled and it's over.
Yeah.
Because here these rumors start that the SWAT team was out there and there was no SWAT team.
Yeah, so that'll happen sometimes. I remember there's a rumor too that there was somebody with a gun, that was by the apartments or something like that. And I said, oh, well, let's look into that and everything, and let's see what this person's talking about. And it ended up turning out that it was a kid with a airsoft gun. Again, it's good to find out,
right?
Good to check out and everything, but then it's kind of letting everybody know, okay, everybody calm. It wasn't that. We looked into it, but then we let those parents know and stuff too. Hey, this kind of concerns some people, so we just want to be very careful about this. Make sure that any toys have that orange tip, all that kind of stuff that indicates it's a toy, because those are real situations. There's been, and one of the things too that when I communicate with our police department, it's making sure they're having the right training and everything else so that they can handle those situations properly, because they have to make split-second decisions and different things. And nobody wants that horrible situation that I think has happened in some communities where a child or somebody gets killed or injured, and it turned out there was no real threat there, right?
Yeah.
It was a toy or something. And you don't want that on the conscience of police. You don't want parents to deal with that. You don't want your community to deal with that.
That's great. Now, one kind of quasi-negative thing, back when I was back with the radio station, and I was in the Leadership Academy, and we came out to Cortland School, and we did a broadcast there. And the air quality was a question then. And I remember they had monitors there at the school. And tell us about where we stand now with air quality. Had to do with the dump being there, the proximity of the dump.
So they had put in monitors and everything else. And we haven't had an issue since I was on the DeKalb County Board.
Yeah, I haven't heard it mentioned.
It hasn't been something that's been brought up to us or anything else. I know people are very happy with, the quality of education that's being provided at Cortland Elementary School. It's a bilingual, school as well. So people like that kind of program. Oh, it's a great school and everything. Obviously, again, if I was on that school board and everything, it's always hindsight's 2020, right? So they can look and go, hey, we were offered free land. We want to do that. So we were offered free land. And we were thinking, okay, we could do that. But one of the things I wish they would have probably taken more in consideration is the landfill potential expansion, things like that.
Yeah, very good. We're talking to the newly re-elected mayor of Cortland, Mark Pietrowski. A couple other light issues to talk about. One is chickens in Cortland. We had this issue here in DeKalb as well.
So I knew you were going to bring up chickens. I knew it.
You've been trying to avoid that subject, but tell us about that. It's kind of a light issue, but there's a lot of people.
It is. A lot of people are passionate about it. Like it's been that way in a lot of different communities, right? And quite frankly, it's like I'm fine with chickens, and I was fine with them my first term, fine with them now. But what people need to realize too is it's not going to be every home is not going to be able to have these because maybe their yard's not big enough, or they live in an HOA that doesn't allow it because, our allowing of chickens isn't going to necessarily supersede what their HOA agreement says. So what we're going to do is I've promised that in May, we're going to have a real discussion about it and an up or down vote. So when I was mayor the first term, we had 2 discussions on it. The board decided they didn't want to move forward, and that was kind of it. But there was no real definitive yes or no. And I think people go, we want an up or down vote.
Right.
So it's like, okay, great. Now, that being said, so let's say the board votes yes or no. We could still have it open then for a referendum that we put on for 2026. If the voters truly say, hey, well, we want to show you, and then you re-examine this. That's fine. And I know DeKalb's dealt with this before and everything else. But, so we look at the pros and the cons. And, when you look at online, you can see what the pros are, what the cons are. But again, I think where there's a will, there's a way for some people. And I think there's certain properties that could probably sustain it. So it's just a matter of looking and seeing what that would be and modifying our ordinance to kind of handle that. And then we'd have to have rules in place about any type of fines that we would have to institute. Sure. And then our police would have to be able to monitor.
I was going to say, who's going to monitor?
So, it would be our police and everything because they handle our ordinances and everything. So, again, we're going to look at it. We're going to let the board, it'll be the newly seated board. So we have one new board member, Vicky Heyer, who's going to be seated on the board this month. And we'll see where people lie.
And staying with the animal theme, there's still time, I believe, to vote for Annie, the Cortland community dog, right? And mention a librarian there at the Cortland Library.
We've got I know I'm in a library right now, and it's DeKalb's library, and it's a great library. But we've got the best library in the county because they're the little engine that could. So they're in a small library, but we really have residents from all over DeKalb County that go there for their programming.
Is that right? Okay.
Oh, yeah, because they offer a lot of different programming for as small as they are. And it's just like a tight-knit community there. So there's kids that really love going in there. And then, again, I think we're the only library in the county that has kind of a dog that visits and everything. So
that's great.
Annie, the library dog, is owned by the library director and everything over there. So she greets people, she hangs out there, and she has brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, which is great.
That's fantastic too. And now, did you, because you're not wearing a designer suit and you didn't pull up in a Cadillac, did you win the $349 million at the Casey's in Cortland? Tell us what that did to the city. My wife was online and she, did you hear in Cortland they bought the winning ticket? And what has it been like for the town there?
So it was really interesting. I think people were coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, did you win? Did you win? So we're hearing from different residents about, who's this winner and everything. And people don't realize that now it can remain secret always.
They changed that, right?
Because they changed that law. So now anything above 200,000, you don't have to publicly disclose. Whereas before you had to, but then there's issues with people's safety and everything else.
Sure.
So it was a good change in the law. I do agree with it. But it also means, darn it, are we ever going to find out who actually won it? And quite frankly, I don't believe the ticket's been claimed yet.
Is that right?
Yeah. So no, that's not completely out of the norm for a large pot, because what people would sometimes do is employ lawyers and kind of get everything set before they kind of claim it. But if it goes unclaimed, we'd have to look at, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for Casey's that sold it?
Well, now Casey's benefits, right? They get.
So they would get about 500,000.
500,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
For them. So that would be good for that business as well. But
now, it's for just for that store, or is it for Casey's in general across the?
I don't know how it's structured.
Okay.
In terms of how they have it set for that store and everything. If they keep it there, or if they kind of disperse it for their general brand. So I'm not sure what their agreement is there. My hope would be they invested in the store here.
Now, sadly, I'm thinking with a small town, it might be obvious who won. Somebody's building a new mansion or something.
That's what I said. They might not tell us, but there'd be signs, right? So if somebody came in saying, I want to put a waterfall feature in my backyard and a rock wall or something, we go, oh, maybe this person won. Well, you've won so many awards. I was going to mention some, but the one I found most interesting was the Sycamore
Distinguished Alumni Award. I was looking at some of the list of the people on there, Yvonne Johnson and some of the Pete Johnson, just so many wonderful people. What was that like for you at Sycamore High School to say, hey, we want you to be a alumni,
it was awesome.
Distinguished alumni?
It was a great honor. I loved my time at Sycamore High School, and growing up in Sycamore was fantastic. It's a great community. It's definitely talking about a place that has a small town feel, even though it's grown over the years. And that's what we want to do with Cortland too, is even if we start growing over the years, we want to always make sure we have that small town feel like Sycamore's been able to keep. Because it truly, when you go downtown and stuff, it feels like that's nice small town. People know each other, say hi.
Yeah.
It's really nice. But no, that was a really special honor for me. Technically right now I'm the youngest in there. That will change. I know there's going to be other, really good accomplished people that get in that graduated, earlier than 2001. But I was the first person from the 2000s to get into the Hall of Fame. So that was a nice little footnote. But this year I was really glad to see Virginia Sherrod as one of the inductees, because I think she's fantastic.
Yeah.
And she's been a long-time community member. And had a lot of firsts, right? Being the first African-American woman elected to the Sycamore City Council, and just really devoted to this area. So that was really cool for me to be able to be there for the ceremony for her this time around. And again, my thing's gone. I'm not into the display. I'm not into the display case anymore. But they do always tell us we live on the TV screens in the glass display case.
Okay.
So we you have the printout. The three people have the printout on there, but then when you kind of retire, when they retire your printout, then or your poster, you end up on the TV on the side of it. So my little profile will always be showing up there.
Mark Pietrowski lives on. So to wrap things up here, I have an old bio from you, and it says Mark loves public education and seeing students accomplish what they can accomplish in life. Has a passion for leadership, community service, police and government, and comedy. I underlined in the comedy. So did we ever do a little stand-up, Mark? Because, nothing, I've done a little myself. Nothing is scarier than doing stand-up comedy.
So, as a younger individual, I did some different skits and things like that. I've never done the open mic stand-up or anything like that. I've been asked by people. I've been, it's been something I've toyed with. And I've said, in being in public office and stuff too, I didn't go that route yet. And it's funny that you mentioned that, though. Stephen Reed, former DeKalb County board member, he has gotten into stand-up.
Is that right?
He has, yeah. And that's kind of inspiring me that at some point I really want to give that a go, because it's been something that's been on my mind for a long time. I with a writing partner, I wrote a feature-length comedy script before in college and everything else. So I truly do love comedy and comedians and that world. But when I was deciding in terms of college, I was seriously considered, applying and going to Second City.
I took classes there.
This is some inside information for your listeners. So I really did consider Second City and looking at that. Ultimately decided just to stick with normal college and go that route. But it's always been something that I'm interested in. Right. So I wouldn't say never to just popping up in Batavia or somewhere else at a comedy club and doing an open mic and trying my 2 minutes or my 5 minute routine. But we'll see. I see that potentially at least I want to do it once or twice. And we'll see if it becomes more than that.
Now, you mentioned your wife. We mentioned your wife by name. Mentioned your lovely wife. But...
Yeah, Corey Renfer is my wife and everything. So, again, she's always been very involved in local community as well. We've got a wonderful relationship where, again, I think we have similar interests in the community and politics and everything else. But yeah, she definitely is not. She would love behind the scenes stuff more than, we're saying, you can be out there, be in the public. I'll be behind the scenes helping. So she's always been the person that champions, like any campaign that I'm in. She's right there, like helping me go, this is what you need to do. I'm like, okay. So it's just like, just help guide me. What do I need to do to, so she's the one that's the more of the political mind in terms of, hey, this is the strategy. This is how you would get elected and talk to voters and do this and do that. And I'm more of the, okay, what do I need to do? Let's do this, and be out there in public. But no, she's wonderful.
Now this is old now with the two dogs. Are we still the puppies around?
Yep. Yeah. We got two dogs right now. So Belle and Bug. So both senior dogs, but they're like little puppy dogs to us and everything.
Sure.
So they're both Chihuahuas, Chihuahua wiener dog mixes.
Oh.
So they're wonderful.
And what is Belle and Herbie's? Because
Belle and Herbie's is so we have a small business, my wife and I. So
okay.
So she runs it, and it's we sell like vintage items, handmade, different retail, wholesale type items, and we have a storefront or a booth, I should say, in the Rustic Fox Carroll Stream and the Rustic Fox North Aurora store.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm reading Dick Van Dyke's biography right now, and he grew up in Danville, Illinois, which is about 100 miles from here. And it describes Danville the way you could describe Cortland, just being that small town feel. And what are your aspirations? I'm not looking for you to say you want to be senator or president, but you're just a young guy. I remember when I met you 25 years ago, I'm like, well, what is this young guy involved with the politics here?
Right.
And,
Exactly.
I thought you might have wavered since now, but you're still involved.
I'm stuck with it, right?
Yeah,
I'm stuck with it. So, for me and everything, I say the best job in politics is being a mayor. That doesn't get better than that. So if I did anything other than that, it'll be a step down in my mind. but it's one of those things where you never say never towards opportunities. So we'll always look at opportunities that are out there to serve publicly. I think it's at some point. So I took a step back to, we're like, hey, we're going to do this podcast. And I came to the realization that I have been elected consistently in this community to different positions since 2009.
That's right, going all the way back. Yeah.
That's a long time to be a public official in different roles, because I never believe in overstaying one's welcome in a certain position. So it's like a self-imposed term limits almost. But it's a long time to be a public official. So, there's a part of me too that says, ooh, man, that looked nice to kind of relax for a little bit and do that. But I'm always going to be involved somehow, even if it's not elected politics. I'm going to be part of some type of advocacy nonprofit or something like that. That's standing up for people, sticking up for people. That's just, I think, my nature, and something that I'm always going to want to see how can we be improving our communities.
And speaking of standing up, you always have your stand-up career as well to fall back.
Yeah, maybe aspiring stand-up. We'll see. I don't know. But if I'm going to do it, you need to go do it too, right?
It's always been my dream. I will. I'll hold you to that.
If we hold each other to that,
all right,
and then we both go to an open mic or something, we can have a fun time.
Hey, look, I actually have a couple minutes written. I'm just afraid to say it to anybody. Our guest has been Mark Pietrowski, recently reelected. Again, congratulations on the reelection, Mark. Thank you so much for your time here this morning. And again, if anybody has ever the cause for DeKalb County, I get that from when I met you 25 years ago. I could tell you were into this for the long haul, and you have
Absolutely.
been. So thank you all you've done for the community, and we look forward to having you back on the show real soon.
Sounds good. Anytime.
Mark Pietrowski, our guest here on podcast number 6, TD Ryan Unleashed.